Hello everyone, my name is Lydia, and I just wanted to talk about how growing up with maybe not the best circumstances kind of shaped me into making better decisions for myself and being happy as an adult with the fact that I grew up with not the greatest circumstance. Growing up, I grew up in a pretty, I would say, middle class household, but we also didn't have a ton of like disposable income at all. And so we lived in like a nice house, a nice neighborhood, had a pretty decent car, but we were able to just like maintain that. And to the points where sometimes, when I would ask for makeup when I was in middle school and I was 12 years old, and then I found out how much makeup actually cost, for the mascara and the eyeshadow. And my mom's not a makeup girly, so it's not like I could go raid her, her stash of makeup. So I would have had to buy a lot of that in bulk or buy a lot of that starting out with no experience, not knowing whether or not I would have even enjoyed that or not. And so growing up with that, just realizing how expensive makeup was and having to sort of postpone that until I was a little older, it did, I think, help me from being dependent on it. Because I can easily have seen my 12-year-old self wearing makeup and allowing that to become sort of a mask and sort of this like thing that I just do every day, especially if it became like normal and that's how I saw my face every day. I think it would be really hard to get out of that, out of that habit. Yeah, and then once I did get into makeup for a little while, I was a little bit experimenting with it. It was a lot of fun. But I started to realize just like it was like it allowed my face to breathe through all my formative years, to where when I started experimenting at like 17, I think I was 17, and I started to, wear even just a minimal stuff, it felt so heavy on my face. It was like I was able to see sort of this, I guess, this sort of, I don't know, this different outlook on it than I think a lot of people my own age at the time were able to see, because they grew up wearing it since 13 and onward, maybe even before that. I knew a lot of girls in my middle school were wearing makeup every day. And it's like not being exposed to that super early and then exposing myself to it as an older teenager, I think I was able to look at it in a clearer, much different lens and realize that like it's not really for me. I think it could be fun to experiment with. I think makeup is a beautiful art form. But I feel very, I guess, fortunate that I didn't get into that early. And, who's to say if I would have had disposable, income or disposable cash at a 13-year-old, I probably would have spent it a lot on makeup. And I could definitely see myself getting used to that. Also braces, I didn't have money for braces growing up. And I did get my wisdom teeth removed. Those did end up hurting me, actually. Like, a lot of people say that they're meant to hurt, but mine hurt me for like a couple years, and I was like, is this meant to happen? Like, I thought it was supposed to hurt for like a year and then like you're done. And I just was like, yeah, I think I should just get them removed. So I did, but I didn't grow up getting braces, which is interesting because a lot of my friends who were, I would say, maybe like lower class or more towing the poverty line, they got braces, which I don't really understand how that works, because braces are insanely expensive. Like, I don't even know how they were able to get braces, but we did not. And as a kid, I was always like, are you kidding me? Like, like, everybody gets braces in their life. And I definitely didn't want to be an adult with braces. Like, I wanted to just get them over in my formative years and then have straight teeth the rest of my life. Like everybody, everybody else that I was seeing in my view line. But now that I'm an adult, and I really never thought I would have this thought, but now that I'm an adult, I'm able to go like, wow, I'm the only one that has my teeth. Like, like braces, they kind of give you this sort of uniform straight teeth look, and it's very common in America. But I am the only one with my teeth. Like, my teeth are sort of this symbol of my genes and my ancestors. And I have them, and my sibling has very similar, like, teeth to me, like they're crooked in a very similar way. And it just reminds me of my lineage. And I'm like, wow, like, that's so kind of cool. Like, this is my smile. This is the only smile that I was, like, meant and born to have. I just think that's pretty cool. It makes me far more unique than I would be if I didn't have these crooked teeth. I used to be extremely embarrassed of them, extremely. But it's given me some sort of resilience, I guess, to embrace them and be happy with them. And I'm very grateful for that. I think another thing that I'm very grateful for, which I wouldn't say this is necessarily growing up in an unfortunate circumstance, although it kind of is, but I spent 3 years in toxic mold in my early 20s, I believe. Yeah. Started in 2018. So I would have been just 20, and then for 3 years after that. So it was rough, to say the least. I talk a lot about my journey in toxic mold on here. I usually say that I was in it for 4 to 5 years, but recently I did the actual math in my head of how long I was in it. It was only 3 years. Like, it feels like a lifetime. It feels like a literal lifetime. But 3 years in toxic mold, and it shaped me big time. It was like hell on earth, and I do talk about that a lot. But in that time, like, I was so kind of removed in a way from comparing myself to the world, because, or at least in terms of beauty standards, I would compare myself to the world in terms of what they were capable of doing compared to what I was capable of doing, because I was going through this immense fatigue, immense sickness. It was an all-encompassing experience. And that is what I would compare myself to the world about. And I would spend a lot of my time on YouTube, because that was really all I could muster up the energy to do during the day, was just to keep my eyes open and, like, watch a video sometimes. And it made me feel more alive, I guess, to kind of watch human beings exist. While I felt like I was in a prison, not to be dramatic, but I mean, that really is how I felt. And it was just interesting because, like, what was going on in my head was really just that these people are living their lives, these beauty gurus, and these people out here winter camping. I loved watching winter camping videos at the time. These people were just living a life, and I really wasn't comparing myself to them in terms of visual appearance at all, because at that time it was just so crucial to me to get my energy back, let alone follow normative beauty standards by any means. And I have talked about this on here too, on my channel, that through that period I didn't even look in the mirror. There was a good solid year where I never looked at myself in the mirror, never through a camera, nothing, not through a mirror in a store, nada, nothing. think maybe that was 2020 or 2021. Not at all. Didn't even have any sort of idea of what I looked like. And that was kind of insane. Like, it did a lot of rewiring, I guess, to my brain for the better and for the worse, to where I didn't compare myself to other people visually, because I really had no concept of what I was even visually looking like. And I just was so focused on healing. And I think, as tragic as that situation was, that I was in toxic mold, in a way it kind of shifted the way my brain looked at beauty standards. And now that I'm out of toxic mold, it's like I'm almost able to look at things in a different light. I mean, it's like I don't have really any advice to anybody out here. If you guys want to get away and break away from the beauty standards and the conditioning that's on us women, I don't have advice, because I definitely wouldn't recommend going through toxic mold. You know what I mean? But it did shape me greatly. To where when people were going through the big, thick eyebrow trends too, I just was not even really there. Because even pre-toxic mold, I was in a super, like a massive depression. And so I was super disassociative through that time. So I really spent this good chunk of my late teens to early 20s just being completely like removed from like the typical beauty standards. And even when people recently were starting to do the middle part, it was like I just didn't even connect to do the middle part on myself. I was kind of like, okay, oh, that's what's in right now, and I didn't connect that. So I don't really have advice, but I do think that sometimes in life these things that seem like terrible conditions are more of a reconditioning of our own minds, whether that be removing ourselves from beauty standards, removing ourselves from toxic ways of living before. It's also funny because I need to grab something really quick. Oh, my dog Sophie's here, by the way. I'm sure you guys watched her walk in, but before toxic mold, when I was in my teens, I had terrible self-body image, like terrible. And I used to collect, and my mom even had a collection of old sweaters, like old wool sweaters. And I was super particular on which ones I would wear, even though I loved the texture of wool, and even though I thought all of them were awesome, I was very particular on the ones that I would allow myself to wear. And very particular on how I could wear them, because I didn't want to look fat, I didn't want to look overweight, I didn't want to look like the chubby friend, which is a terrible outlook to have. Terrible. And that really shifted why and how I dressed throughout my teen years especially. It was very much about, well, what makes me look the skinniest? That was really what was the forefront. Like, I might like a piece of clothing, but does it make me look shapeless? Does it make me look unattractive to the normal eyes? And after toxic mold, I bought this sweater. Y'all see this? I mean, it's great. It is so great. I love this sweater so much. I was hype when I found it. Hype, y'all. I mean, it's got reindeer on it. I'm so excited that it's getting to be fall. I'm so excited for fall, you guys. I get to wear my reindeer sweater. Oh, and it's like Nordic. It's the white and the blue. And these could be like waves maybe, or like little like wind maybe. And they're like eating like the trees. Oh, it's so good. And it was interesting because I when I first bought it and I tried it on, I instantly loved it until I saw a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and then I was like, uh-oh, like, it was like this old wave of old patterning almost rushing over me. I was like, uh-oh, does this look flattering on me? Does this look the way that I want it to look on me? Like, does this make me look shapeless? Does this make, like, all of these like nitpicky things? And I had to stop myself and go, wait, I have been through way too much in my life to be like re-perpetuating these past thoughts. And I'm glad I stopped myself in that moment. I'm so relieved that I had this conditioning, this in a way, if I can thank toxic mold for literally anything, it would be just that it conditioned me and detoxed me from toxic mindsets that I had during my teenage years. And yeah, because I would never have worn this sweater before. Never. And it is my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing that I own. It's so good. I'm sorry, it's got a lot of hairs on it that you probably could see, and you guys are probably like, ew, but I am a dog owner. Like, and so I do spend some time picking off the dog hairs off my clothes sometimes. You know, that's what happens. But I just love this sweater so much. And I would never have worn it before. Never. Even though I love it and it makes me happy. And I like the way it feels on me. It never would have happened before. But I think a lot of these things that seem like terrible conditions, or like maybe the downsides of life, like, oh, I didn't have disposable income when I was, or disposable income when I was a kid. I didn't have large allowances or any allowances to just spend freely, you know, like other kids that I knew did. Or the fact that I even went through toxic mold, or the fact that I went through homelessness. It's like all of these things that seem like terrible circumstances, even though they are terrible circumstances to some degree, they also can teach us and condition us out of toxic ways of being and thinking, and remove us from the norm, you know? And I guess that's partially why they're difficult when you're in it, is because it's like there's this pushback. You're constantly reminded of what the norm is, that how everybody else is living, and it's this giant pushback against it, and that almost makes it, it's almost part of what makes it so difficult, you know? But then when you're away from it for a little while, you're able to realize just how much it did for you. At least that's my experience with these difficulties that I've experienced in my life. Like, it's hard to be thankful for them sometimes, especially when I'm reminded of just how rough some of these times were in my life. But then when I'm reminded of times like this, where it's like, wow, I'm actually proud of my teeth as an adult, and that's something I never would have ever thought I would be when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. I never thought I would be accepting of them, you know? Anyway, sometimes the hardest life lessons are the ones that we really need. Am I right? Am I right? Anywho, I'm happy that I can wear that sweater now. Have a good day, everybody. See ya.